moderator for our next panel, professor at the College of Global Futures at Arizona State University, Melissa Nelson, accompanied by her panelists.
Bujunin Dinoy Maganatug. Greetings to you all as relatives. Good morning. Good morning. I am so happy to be here on Lenni Lenape lands, and so grateful for that opening land acknowledgement by the First Peoples of this area. And I am very, very honored to be here with my Indigenous brothers and sisters from around the Moana, around Mother Earth. We have wonderful people who are going to share with you about the importance of Indigenous knowledges. Why start a Global Futures Conference with Indigenous knowledges? Because our global futures will be rooted in ancient wisdom and futures Indigenous thinking. We are the first scientists, the first stewards. We are contemporary rights keepers and holders of the remaining 80% biodiversity. So we need to have a seat at the table. We need to have a place in these conversations and dialogues. And I'm so grateful to the organizers at ASU for welcoming and starting, as we say, in a good way with Indigenous wisdom. I am going to pass it over to my comadre and compadre here in a minute, but I want to share a few key thoughts that I have about the importance of Indigenous knowledges and global futures thinking. First of all, the health and well-being of Indigenous people, we are an indicator of planetary health. If we are unwell, the planet is unwell. And sadly, there is a lot of unwellness today, as we've heard from the poly crisis and all the extractive industries that have been polluting the environment. We are the canaries in the coal mine. We are the front line of climate change. Our territories are being flooded. They are being burned. We're suffering from severe drought, displacement, relocation due to climate change. Our traditional foods are shifting, going north in some places, south in other places, as other species are migrating into our traditional territories. So our foods and medicines are being greatly impacted. We need to be part of the conversation and the solution for planetary health. They will be rooted in local solutions, but amplified globally through solidarity and through kinship networks. And there is a global Indigenous movement right now, as we heard from our youth representative, that is on fire right now. A good use of the word fire. We are alive and enlivened by the wisdom of our traditions and working together with all of you. We need your investment. We need your partnership. We need your alliances. But we need to do this rooted in Indigenous rights. We have a wonderful UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples that outlines free, prior, and informed consent and other essential instruments for ethical, respectful collaboration for development projects or partnerships with Indigenous peoples. We have nature-based solutions that are rooted in Indigenous wisdom traditions. We are the original biomimics, learning from fire, learning from water, in how to harmonize with natural ecological systems for sustainable lifeways. So we have a lot of wisdom to share with you today. Those are just a few simple points. And most significantly, on the question of why don't we change? Why don't we change? That's a deep question. And I think a lot of us need to, myself included, slow down, stop, and rethink our fundamental values. And Indigenous peoples offer relational worldviews and kinship models for decision-making and governance that is so essential today as we try to solve these pressing problems of creating a just and sustainable world for all beings. So thank you for listening, and thank you for being here and joining this. We need your allyship. We need your investment. We need your partnership in the Indigenous rights movement for planetary health. And with that, I will move to our first speaker, She has a beautiful name. She is a daughter of Samoa. She comes from Aotearoa, New Zealand, is a poet and a director of the Flying Geese Pro. She works in media and indigenous wisdom traditions and is a wayfinder, so understands the ways of the ocean and navigation. And if I can do this right, Faumuina, Tafuna'i. All right, welcome, Faumuina.
Thank you, Melissa. Ia whaftai le atua, whaftai fo'i tatou mafutanga I le aso. Whaftai kako whalaoinga I le kapoinga o kako whongo, o le kosinga o kako o langa, ma le malo le soifu ma le langa ma. Ngā mihi greetings to our native landowners and I guess, and thank you for allowing those of us who travel to actually come into this land and giving us the permission to tread on your land. I wanted to start off so that I could sort of presence the way I think when we talked about the moana and that I am a girl of, I love saying still a girl, of the moana, of canoes, of sailing, and have been privileged to sail with celestial navigators. And when Sylvia was talking about how the technology allows us to see, I guess, a global perspective, but then also the bottom of the ocean, I think about my ancestors and how they will be able to attain a kind of oneness with the space, with the heavens, with the earth and the wind and the moana, but also with people and with our animals. And for me, that's a kind of like indigenous technology, a wisdom that was built into the way of being. And I always call it, it's the oneness over the one. This particular poem, it's called Wayfinding and Wayfinders. My ancestors voyaged across an ocean, 1/3 of the earth, one blue highway, one sea of islands, navigating mindful memories, apprenticed to the wind, the swell, and the heavens. And so I am born a daughter to this legacy, the house of the foaming ocean. Scientific genius transferred to each generation until wooden desks and blackboards replaced our canoes. Yet tomorrow those same stars will rise to new minds and eyes seeking solutions and wayfinding philosophies. A way that teaches you to see the island, to leave your Thomas doubts behind, to know yourself, your knowledge, your skills, the abundance and the lack, to know your crew, the present, the past and the future, to uplift and guide, to read the cultural, political and economic weather, the environmental pulse, to know you cannot control the wind, only which way your canoe is facing, to learn that life is multiple tacks and A to B only exists in the English alphabet. And once you are provisioned, pull up the anchor, choose courage over fear, feel the wind on your face, submit to the journey, to the island in your heart. Realize that earth and home, friendship and love make a more certain compass than north and south, east and west. And so I bring this, thank you. I bring this offering of that poem because in this place, I think what we've tended to value more was leadership, but what the earth needs now is fellowship. And this is something that happens on our canoes because you can imagine the mutiny that would happen. Fellowship and what we teach instead of, to be a collective, to surrender to that, but also to celebrate it in the journey. I think we've taken on the climate approach as the burden of it, but actually to celebrate how we at this moment, I love the turning point, we at this moment have that power to not just our own actions, but to put people in the right place. As an Indigenous person, I'm saying, if you're going to value the knowledge, then put us at the table. If we, I loved Johan's challenge, let's think in different ways. Let's not make us the bookend that opens the conference and closes the conference. Let us be at the table and bring the wisdom, because I think some of the lived experiences just can't be transferred through text. then we must be there to be able to hone and check that thinking. So, and one of the things that I saw in this is like, why are we not taking more action? And it's, of course, it's fear that we will lose, fear that we won't have enough, and we built this fear into our school systems, into our children, that they could not be enough. We've taught them that cover your work is the way you should live, and you should hoard. And, I'm from Samoa, so wealth looks like hoarding. It's kind of a funny approach, For us, wealth looks like distribution. That you could distribute more is actually how you show your wealth. That you would hoard it, people look down on you. So how do we flip that? I think it's, those who are in the rooms at the top and, making sure that governments and multinationals are kept in check. But it's also right from when we have our children and what we are teaching them. Otherwise, this is a generational turning point. Because how can we teach them that? A growth mindset. You've got to grow profit. You've got to achieve in the world, and what does achievement look like? And then tell them you need to stop. So I think some of the anchors are that where we're pointing our compass at. And how do we start to change that on multi-levels? And for me, it's always the classroom, because, as an Indigenous person, that's where colonization is so rich in telling us what we should value, So I would like to turn that needle. For me, our compasses that we have our celestial navigation has a 32-point compass. Because if you're trying to find a small island in a big ocean, you need a very technical compass. And so I like the 10 must-haves. I think it's action. If you talk to people from the moana, yes, there's philosophy, but so much is about action. It's the action that keeps us safe. It's the action of fellowship, of leadership, but also of how we raise each other, how we uplift each other. So the important part, I think, in this as well, is like, how do we get to the end of that turning point and still love each other? Still love the earth, still love the journey. Because if we don't love the journey, people are going to fall off the journey pretty fast. So we need to find ways to really celebrate that and celebrate ourselves at each point.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Miigwech, for those wonderful words. I was just with a fabulous Mohawk leader, Diane Longboat, who said, what will it take for everybody on the earth to fall back in love with creation? Why don't we fall back in love with creation? And I think that beautiful opening by Tecumseh was a really truncated short version of the Thanksgiving address that the Haudenosaunee people of the North do here every meeting, to give thanks to the sun, the moon, the water, the foods. We don't take these things for granted. We have taken so much for granted in the Western dominant society, and Mother Earth is trying to wake us up now and remind us we cannot take these things for granted anymore. So thank you. I would like to invite our beautiful speakers next from the Amazon. We are so honored and grateful to have you here. Domingo Payans, Territory Coordinator from the Amazon Sacred Headwaters Alliance, and my dear old friend and sister Atossa Soltani, former Executive Director of Amazon Watch and current Chair. Also Director of Global Strategy at the Amazon Sacred Headwaters Alliance. And you are keepers of the lungs of the planet. And you're working on an exciting project to protect the Amazon and the waters there. I will let you, with the translation, flow with your speaking. So welcome to the Global Futures Conference.
Buenos días por
Buenos días.
este espacio, queridas y queridos, hermanos.
Dear brothers and sisters, good morning.
Felicitar a la dama científica y científicos que están aquí presentes.
And to congratulate the amazing scientists and leaders who are here this morning, presented before me.
Gracias por estar aquí. Gracias por compartir.
Thank you for all being here. Thank you for sharing this time with us.
Es momento ya de escucharnos mutuamente.
It's a really important moment for us to hear one another.
En la historia de nosotros, y creo que de todos, hay leyendas buenas y malas.
In all of our cultures, there are legends, both legends of good and also legends of bad things.
Pero estamos aquí para siempre superando para bien de todos.
But we're here working to rise above the challenges for the common good of all.
Entonces, no sé, yo quisiera más bien, ¿de dónde comienzo? ¿Qué punto tengo para comenzar?
I want to know where I should start with my presentation.
I would love to hear from you in your Indigenous knowledge systems if you have stories about the precariousness of our times today, that we would reach a breaking point or a turning point, and what are the must-dos for humans to get through this challenging period? Do you have instructions for us from your oral traditions?
Gracias. Esta pregunta es una reflexión para todos.
This is a question and a point of reflection for all of us.
Nosotros sabemos una leyenda que es Ibia. Hace siglos había un monstruo llamado Ibia.
In our tradition, the Achuar people have a legend of a monster called Iwia that lived hundreds of years ago, many centuries ago.
Y este comía a todos los humanos
This monster ate humans
sin paciencia de nada.
without any break.
Solo voy a dar resumen, es muy largo,
It's a very long legend, but I'll give a summary of it.
pero cómo se triunfó el pueblo achuar ante esto. Tuvo que hacer una alianza con todos los animales vivos de la selva, ecosistema.
It's a long legend, but the basic gist of it is that to survive this monster that was eating us, we had to form an alliance with all the animals, all the creatures of the forest.
Entonces, entre ellos, exterminaron a este Ibia. Desde ahí procrearon los achuar.
And that's how the Achuar were able to defeat the monster, the voracious monster, is by forming an alliance with all creatures. And that's how the Achuar were able to rise above and continue to exist today.
¿Por qué les cuento esta leyenda en resumen? Es porque estoy aquí desde tan lejos de la Amazonía, gracias a la compañía de Atossa y otros amigos y amigas para compartir nuestra experiencia con vosotros.
Well, that's why I'm here from such far away to share my experiences and my stories with you with the help of allies like Atossa.
Lo que pensamos es que la Amazonía es un ser vivo. Todo lo que dijo la señorita y la sabia científica, el cambio de pensamiento del ser humano, el cambio de actitud. Pero esto paralelamente va el cambio de sistema que ya hay que hacer y hacer acciones conjuntamente.
I want to underscore what I heard from Xie and our esteemed scientist Sylvia, that really it's about changing our consciousness, changing our worldview. The Amazon, we see the Amazon as a living being, and that we really have to take that in and also work not just to shift attitudes, shift consciousness, but shift systems.
Lo que la sabia dijo, no sé qué habrá en el subsuelo del mar. Hay seres humanos, para nosotros Ya nuestras plantas nos han enseñado que hay un ser humano llamado Tsunki, que muy raras veces solo aparece para dar mensaje a nosotros, a los humanos.
Sylvia mentioned the deep sea, how there are beings in the deep sea. We also believe in spirits of the water called Sunki. These are spirits, human spirit, like human spirits. They could appear to us at critical moments to bring us messages from nature.
Es el dueño de todo el agua.
Sunki is the owner of all waters.
También tenemos ser vivo, Sham, que es de la selva, que cuida la naturaleza.
We also have a spirit called Sha'am. Sha'am is the spirit of the forest. And it's also a living being. And this spirit cares for the forest, is the guardian of the forest.
También tenemos en la selva un ser vivo, invisible, pero se llama Amazán, que es dueño de todos los animales, de los insectos para el ecosistema.
And we also have a Masanga. A Masanga is the guardian of all creatures, the animals, the insects, and that these are the living beings that live in our forests.
Por eso para los indígenas la Amazonía es parte de la vida, es nuestra vida, es un ser humano. Los ríos, los vientos tienen vida, los árboles tienen vida, tienen espíritu, y esa conexión tenemos nosotros con el mundo natural.
And for us, forest is alive, the wind is alive, the river is alive, and all creatures that live in the forest. We are in direct communication and relationship with all of these living beings, and that these are the things that give us life.
Por eso, como dijo la hermana, para nosotros todos somos hijos de Madre Tierra y nos da todo, y solo tenemos ese buen vivir, no acumular riqueza material. Es la gran diferencia del mundo moderno con el mundo indígena.
And so I want to underscore what I heard my sister say next to me, that we are all children of Mother Earth. We are all her children, and that Mother Earth gives us life, and that we need to live not to accumulate. We're not here to accumulate material wealth. We're here to coexist in harmony with life. And that is what gives us life. So to recognize that Earth gives us life and that we are in relationship with her is how we see the world.
Entonces, es esa vida que queremos regresar atrás, llegar al amor, a la solidaridad, el respeto mutuo, el mundo humano con mundo natural.
And that's why we want to return to this concepts, these values, these ethics about how we live in harmony with nature and how we need to fall in love with nature, and we need to love and care for nature because she gives us life.
Yo sé que es difícil este cambio.
I know
Es muy difícil, es ese ego que tenemos cada uno. Si no cambiamos nuestra actitud, si no hacemos acción, por lo más que lloremos, no habrá cambio. Entonces, es la responsabilidad de cada uno de nosotros este cambio.
And I know it's difficult. These are difficult things to integrate. But really, this is the change we must make. If we don't change our attitude, if we don't change our consciousness, if we don't wake up and be in relationship to this bigger reality, we are not going to, no matter how hard we try, we're not going to make the changes we need.
Hasta ahí, gracias.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful stories and vision. And I love that Sylvia Earle said it's our best chance. And I think we certainly know, as my Anishinaabe prophecy says, it's also our last chance for humans. So let's do this right. Let's do this together. And Atossa, I would like to invite you to share some words about your work with the Sacred Headwaters. And you've been such a good ally, as Domingo mentioned. You have been such a good accomplice and advocate for Indigenous rights. And that's not always easy as a, quote, outsider. Can you share some lessons for everyone here about what it takes to be a good ally and supporter to Indigenous peoples and Indigenous worldviews?
Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you to the organizers for having me. It's awesome to be here with all of you. As Melissa said, I've spent the last 3 decades working in solidarity and support with Indigenous peoples throughout the world, but mostly in the Amazon basin. And it's been a privilege and an incredible honor. I've learned so much, and I think that, you know, partly the curiosity that we have about what we need to do to change our world, for me, a lot of lessons have come from the Indigenous worldviews. The work that we do in the Sacred Headwaters right now is that we have been deeply listening and supporting the emergence of an alliance of 30 Indigenous nations whose territories collectively make up an area the size of Italy or Oregon, who are working to permanently protect their forests in the headwaters. And permanently protection, you know, it's not necessarily the traditional conservation that one would think of. Permanent protection in terms of leaving behind fossil fuels and mining, extraction, really promoting a model of a worldview of what they call buen vivir, this idea of living in harmony with the earth. So we've been working on developing a big plan for the ecological transition to an Indigenous-centered, Indigenous-centric model of economy that's literally is about living in harmony with nature. And it's been an incredible honor because Indigenous peoples are, as you say, on the front lines, and they're teaching us, they're kind of like beacons of light that are guiding our path into this next evolution of human species. So they bring us messages of basically commitment, reciprocity, and the mutual flourishing of life. And I think that that is, you know, we are, you know, our worldview of the way we see the world in the modern world has been very much focused on the material accumulation, domination, competition, and living as if, you know, extraction of resources and economic growth is our mantra. We have a life-blind economic system that doesn't distinguish between a parking lot or an ancient forest. Our economic system is, you know, basically now its own driving force. And so partly what the work of Indigenous people is to realize the forest is alive and that the idea of mutual flourishing is a riddle of nature. It is how nature works. And nowhere better is this demonstrated than the fact that you mentioned 80% of the world's biodiversity is in this part, is in Indigenous territories. And 60% of the world's intact forests are in Indigenous territories. And why is that? You know, if you see the earth as your mother, and if you see your aspiration to be a good ancestor to future generations of all life, and that all life is your relative, and you're in kinship with all life, you will get huge amounts of biodiversity in intact forests, and that is the riddle. And so we're working on promoting, empowering, supporting, enabling, and bringing their ideas and the wisdom of Indigenous peoples to the table. We're also building power. Indigenous peoples are powerful. They speak for future generations. They speak for all life. And so that way we are, you know, winning lawsuits, stopping extractive industries, winning titles to millions of acres of collectively held Indigenous territories. And also working to, you know, basically shift the concept of wealth, changing the definition of wealth to being basically ecological flourishing, biological productivity, that is wealth. Harmony, happiness, health, that is wealth. And so the concepts that they're putting forward are transformational and are having an impact. I just come from a, you know, 15 years ago, stood on stage with President Correa at Clinton Global Initiative, President of Ecuador, to announce a visionary idea of leaving fossil fuels in the ground in the Yasuni National Park, the most biodiverse place on Earth. And just to give you a sense of what biodiverse place on Earth is more species of trees in 1 hectare than in all of US and Canada combined. And we stood on stage and we announced this initiative. It didn't work. The world didn't contribute to helping Ecuador leave fossil fuels in the ground. And Ecuador decided to drill for oil here. The youth organized and got 800,000 signatures to put this issue on the ballot. That failed. We went to court. 10 years later, the referendum went ahead, and about a month ago, the people of Ecuador voted to leave fossil fuels in the ground through democratic action, and indigenous people led it.
Wonderful. And on that great note, what an excellent example of solidarity and organizing from the grassroots with global partners to make significant change for Mother Earth. Thank you so much, and please join me in thanking these Earth warriors from around the world, Faumuina and our friends from the Amazon, Miigwech. Thank you so much.